a sure thing. Change, change. Expect a miracle change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 do.
Good afternoon and welcome to Spirit Cafe, or good morning, good evening, depending where you're at. We're really glad you're here. I'm Barbara Schreiner Trudell. My co-host is Cheryl Rogers, and we are delighted that you've decided to join us today. I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. We work, live, and play on the traditional and historical territory of many Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe and Wendat peoples, and more recently in Mississaugas of the Credit and Haudenosaunee nations. And as we gather from many places on Turtle Island, we as settlers are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, including the Métis, Inuit, and all other Indigenous people. Also acknowledging that as we continue to grow and expand on these lands, there is still unresolved and dangerous inequality and discrimination toward our BIPOC and 2S LGBTQ+ family. And by making these acknowledgements, we strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation. We recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality. We are one. Well, our guest today is the incomparable Ian McKnight. Now, this is a man who is fascinating. 3 decades of human rights work. Yes. And this is inclusive of research with and for the LGBTQI plus HIV, sex worker, and other vulnerabilized communities. He's a co-founder of several related national and regional organizations. His work is grounded in a firm belief in the inseparability of spirituality and sexuality. Has a bachelor's degree in theology, a master's degree in communication for social and behavior change. Holy moly, this guy knows it all. Welcome in. Whoa, I learned so much about you in that.
A mouthful there, right? A mouthful.
You are a lot.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so
I
glad.
could be dancing all day to that intro music. It's just beautiful.
Isn't it fun?
Beautiful.
Yeah, the singer is Karen Drucker. She's the one who created
The one
that.
and only.
Yeah, she's pretty talented. So today we're talking about shifting perceptions and the work that you've done within the LGBTQ+ community really is expansive and remarkable and so essential and important. But I love the idea of spirituality and sexuality. Can we start there?
Right on. I grew up in a fundamentalist, heavily fundamentalist background, although I was Roman Catholic. But, many of us in the Caribbean, parts of Africa, we have had our roots, kind of contentious roots, that's pivoted between African religions and religions that have been foisted on us, and then what's going on in our hearts, and we have been told, don't. And so issues of sex and sexuality have been, seen as ungodly, unless, of course, you've made it godly by going up the altar or whatever, And so how we have grown up is really to shut down, to dishonor, to even disconnect from our sexual selves. And I say that our sexual selves and our spiritual selves are one. And so what persons like myself have had to be doing is to reconcile that, to bring the two together, to forgive ourselves from thinking that God was not shining God's light in this dark area of our lives, to cut the narrative that has been shoved down our throats, and really to embrace a new way of thinking, to shift our perspectives, and to know that God knows everything about me and is a part of everything that I am, inclusive of my sexuality, inclusive of sexual
Yeah.
expression, inclusive of just about everything
Well, of
about me.
course. Well, we are created in the image and of the likeness. And our sexuality is, of course, a natural part of our being. And I was trained to think it's dirty, wrong, and bad. So that creates a little bit of a disconnect, because then when the desire shows up, which of course it does because it's part of our nature, there's some, thing going on inside of us that somehow I'm bad, I'm wrong, that sort of thing. And that is what we need to shift. We need to
Yeah.
come to realize that our sexuality, I think we see some of the I can't think of the word right now. Some of the bad behaviors around sexuality, I think, comes from that messaging. And even in the Roman Catholic Church, when you look at some of the abuse, I think, telling people you cannot have sex. I think that's what's created a lot of that bad behavior, I'll call it.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And what it feeds into, it's all along this downward spiral of, it's bad, then we have to do it in hiding, we have to abuse, all of those along that negative continuum is what really breeds several of the things we're so horrified when they turn.
All the negative conditioning that we've grown up with. And it sounds wonderful, but I'm sitting here thinking it's easier said than done. Like, how do you do that, right?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And one of the things that I always try to run away from is to give a quick and easy recipe, is to give a kind of quick fix for anybody else's life, because I know that inherent in that there are some challenges. So I try to run away from that. I can only talk about my own experience.
Yeah.
And I think that my experience is not unique. There are some principles that undergird everything, The first thing is, I would say, to plant a seed.
Yeah.
To plant a seed. Whenever we can, wherever we can, plant a seed. And plant knowing that that seed will take root, but not giving it a time, because those roots show up in different ways and forms, And I know many people, thousands of people, who have never in their lifetime ever at all been affirmed in any way, shape, or form. In fact, everything that they have gotten for their entire lifetime has been negative, 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 particularly about their sexuality. And let me not skirt around the matter, particularly about their homosexuality. For their entire lifetime, nobody has ever said, you're a good person, you're a good being. But in fact, what they've gotten is whipped night and day. What we have gotten, night and day. That requires planting of many different seeds. And thank God for the internet, where people can now access information. They can hear from other people. But in my day and age, there was nothing. There's no Bible book. There's nowhere to go. There's no person to go to.
Yes.
So I encourage everybody in life just to plant seeds wherever possible. And that includes doing podcasts. It includes shows like these. It includes sending messages on the internet. When you Google certain things on the internet, positive messages should come. Plant those seeds whenever, wherever, and however. Just plant those seeds.
Yeah.
People all over the world might access it at some stage of the day.
It's really important, because there's so many countries that still have, really heavy restrictions on sexual expression, and even probably religious expression. And so shifting that can make a difference. I was reading something written by Bruce Lipton, who is a scientist. He wrote a book called Biology of Belief. And in the foreword to another book, he wrote the foreword, and in there he talked about in the first 6 years of life, we're given all of this messaging, and it's in our subconscious mind.
Mhm.
We get into adulthood, and from our conscious perspective, we're only using about 5% of our conscious capabilities. So he goes on to say that really, you're not even living your life, you're living somebody else's.
Mhm.
Whoever implanted those beliefs, that's what you're living from. And most of us don't know what those beliefs are. And so we look at our life and go, why does it look the way it looks?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because it's being operated on from that
Mhm.
unconscious,
Yeah.
subjective level.
Yeah. So I
And
think what you said
Mhm.
in about the internet and books and things that are available today, it's planting seeds, but it's also educating ourselves so that we can have difficult conversations and really I think that's the way that we shift perspectives, shift perceptions, is when we're able to have conversations with people who not just are learned, but who have lived experience, so that we can start relating in a different way and shifting how we think and feel.
Absolutely. It's also important, some of the messages we communicate to children, even when they're in the belly.
Yeah.
yes,
Start the fear there. I hope you don't become like them. I hope you don't become this. Oh God, please save this child from. And the message is being planted there already. So
Hmm.
we are born into a world that says fear, fear, fear. We're born into a world that says, oh hell, 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 hell. Oh no, no, no. And that sends a lot of the pre-programming, a lot of the subconscious messages planted, riveted in there.
Yeah.
And it's very little surprise, therefore, when we live those out. It's a very little surprise when that's how we start to live that out. So I put that on the table. I think it's also important, and I'm not doing this in any kind of chronological order. It's also important to change the languaging about certain
yeah,
things,
absolutely. Absolutely.
radically change it. So, those of us who have heard we're worthless, bad, dirty, wicked, all of those things that have been told to us, riveted in our subconscious, some of which we have believed, some of
Hmm.
which we have really believed.
Yeah.
We have to turn the tide on that. No, I'm not
Yeah. I'm not
dirty,
that.
bad. No, that's not in my vocabulary. Don't live at that address anymore. Again, it's easier said than done. But the
Hmm.
more we start to practice saying no, despite what you say, society, despite what the song says, despite what generations have said, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
That's not me. I'm not subscribing to that. So changing the language, changing the
Hmm.
language.
I
Hmm.
think that's really important. One of the things I noted in my spiritual center, one of the songs that we've sung over the years is called How Could Anyone? And whenever we would sing that song, about half the congregation would have tears
Right.
pouring
Yeah.
down their face because nobody's ever told them how beautiful and how wonderful and how remarkable they are.
How could
And
anyone say you're less than beautiful?
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, it's like they're getting this message of hope, of possibility. And that changes everything. That's what I love about the New Thought teaching is
Mhm.
we empower people to be who they are,
Mhm.
not who somebody else suggested they should become or behave in a certain way. Just be you. Just be
Yeah.
you because
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
enough.
And I think what's important from what you've said, Barbara, is the people that we surround ourselves with, right?
Yeah.
The people that we're in company with, being aware of their use of language, their belief
Mhm.
systems,
Mhm.
and if they're not willing to have the conversation, maybe we want to be in somebody else's energy and not put ourselves back in that space. So it's about recognizing those things ourselves, having that awareness and making better choices about who we spend time with.
That's important because every word spoken, every word thought is a creative energy going into the
Mhm.
universe, right? And that's what we forget is our thinking is impacting consciousness everywhere.
Mhm.
We're living out of that very unconscious way of being. So to shift perspective requires us to, like you said, Ian, go on the internet, discover new ideas, learn new ways, communicate with people who have a broader vision of any area where we feel stuck. We can begin to support one another in creating a better life.
And you know what? That thing about, uh, Cheryl, about those who we associate with is very important.
Hmm.
It's very important, you know.
Yeah, it is.
I've been in conversations and I thought, hold a second.
Mhm.
I was here 30 years ago. We were hearing the same things.
Mhm.
Something is not right. And the thing that's not right is that I am in that conversation.
Mhm.
The thing
Yeah.
that's not right is that I'm present. And so to slowly say, I love you all, but I can't have these conversations. I can't be in this party anymore. I-
Mhm.
It's, and it's not a holier than thou perspective, but
No.
certainly it's not smalling up yourself. It is saying, this doesn't resonate with where I want to go in life. This
Exactly.
doesn't resonate with my own spiritual, personal development. It just doesn't. And
Mhm.
so I have to be elsewhere. Love you dearly. And you
Mhm.
might be my family, you might be my closest friend. Love you dearly. But I have to feed me now with the things that
Yeah.
make me good. And that goes to the music. You know, there's
Yeah.
some great
Oh,
songs,
yeah.
you
There
know,
is.
but yeah, when I hear some of them today, I think, oh my God, you know, I parked my soul in the lost and found, and you came and snatched it. I thought, oh my God, what am I saying? You
Mhm.
know, it's great music.
Mhm.
It's just not helping my soul right now.
No, that's why I love songs like there's one that Ricky Byers wrote called oh, how does it go? I love myself so much that I could love you so much, so that you could love you so much, so that you could start loving me. And
Wow.
it's such a simple little chant
Mhm.
that repeats over and over, but it's so powerful because it reminds us we can only give what we've got.
Absolutely.
And if we're in front of somebody who can't be there, what we want to do is love them. That does not mean we hang out with them, be best friends with them, but that we shine that energy of love and possibility on them, that they will come to discover how valuable and worthy they are, that they are unique and special like everybody else, and they can find that in themselves and then begin to share it back.
I
Mhm.
agree. Yeah.
It's a
Mhm.
journey. It's a
Yeah.
journey. And we're in very different times right now. When you look at what's going on with the people of our world and how there's so much separation, which COVID did not help, it really created a bigger gap, which I think has created a lot of pain, which is now in the process of being healed. So we come back together uh, and find ways of supporting one another in that loving embrace because we missed it.
Mhm.
And some people are still struggling with coming back together. There's still some fear. But I think we have to. They say babies that aren't held and cuddled die.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Absolutely. We need each other.
yeah, of course we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Of
We
course.
need that connection.
Hmm.
And the unfortunate thing is that sometimes that need leads us to negative relationships, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Yeah, and that again, I think also comes down to the conditioning that we have, that we've had, and what we believe we deserve or don't deserve, or worthy of or not worthy of. We're creating all the time unconsciously.
Yes.
Ian, when you talk about those songs, it's like, oh my goodness, because if people are, if the youth are listening to that over and over and over again, it's going into the subconscious without even realizing, without even trying. And how do we program ourselves out of that? Is by feeding the subconscious music like you're speaking of, co-host Barbara. But because subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's real and what isn't.
exactly.
And so that's
Differentiate.
another way that we can shift our perspectives, shift our consciousness is by feeding it the good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And where do we get the good stuff? We have to find it, because it's not always you know readily available on the shelves. You type in music and what pops up. So it takes some doing.
Yeah.
So most
Well,
important, one of the most important things in this shifting of consciousness, this talking, thinking something new, is just we have to be deliberate. We have to want to do some work. It's not just going to fall in our laps overnight and transformation take place in the twinkling of an eye. That's not going to happen. We have to be deliberate, and we have to be saying, "Hey, no, sorry, not today. I'm not dealing with that today. I'm not. That's not me." It
Yeah.
takes time. Give
Yeah.
us.
It's great
Here-
about this network.
And here's the biggest thing:
Mhm.
we've become experts at beating up ourselves.
Oh, yes.
I didn't do that. Oh, again, how could I forget? I had a great time last week, and I forgot. I walked out of the service and I forgotten everything. We're beating up ourselves
Yeah.
constantly,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's where the work starts, is with ourselves, right? With ourselves. And like you say, we have to be deliberate. We have to make a decision
Yes.
that this is what we choose and how we choose to be in this moment, so we can create better moments, a better future.
Yeah, it's so important, because the only way to change is to, to create a new life is to do something different. Doing the same things over and over again is the definition of insanity. If you're expecting a shift, it won't happen. And what I love about this network, the New Thought Media Network, is everything on here is about positive reinforcement. Great, whether it's radio or the internet shows channels here, everything is about positive reinforcement of life. And I think there's a lot of great New Thought music as well that we can tap into. Go to New Thought Radio on ntmedia.org. There we go. We advertise at radio here. But there's really beautiful, beautiful, powerful music. India Ari has got some great music. Karen Drucker's got great music. Daniel Nemod. There's some powerful, powerful musicians that are singing about possibility and opportunity. And Karen Drucker has a really funny song. She used to sing the blues, and she's got a song out that goes, I can no longer sing the blues, or something like that, because everything's now going well because of her new spirituality. It's a really funny song. It's really great. But
She's
I
a funny lady. I love her humor.
Oh, she's so funny. She's so funny.
Yeah.
But I think there's so many great people that we can access via the internet, that we could begin to recondition our thinking by doing simple practice. And I think our spiritual practice is so, so important. Ian, can you tell me a little bit about your spiritual practice? Like, what keeps you on track and motivated, and especially given the work that you do?
right. So where I am now, and it wasn't always like this. I've had to do a lot of work to get to where I am, is just to work to becoming comfortable with myself,
Yes.
comfortable with my spiritual practices, not spiritual practices that are dictated by anyone or any place or any entity, but to relax and allow myself into what in fundamentalist Christianity is called your personal walk with God, your personal relationship with God. And that has just a new flavor for me.
Yeah.
So you might say, somebody else might say, get up every morning and pray, study, meditate in the mornings, afternoon, whatever works for you, it works for you. I have to make it work for me.
Yes.
And I'm not listening to the labels that say, well, oh, you erred, or you backslide, or whatever it is. No, I am becoming comfortable with it for and as me. So what is
I love it.
that's
I love
working on me just to be comfortable. to relax in God's arms.
Mm.
And I say God, but it's the divine. It's whatever you call that being other than yourself. Just to relax, man. Because so many times we get there and we're so worked up, we're so pumped up, we're so baptized in negativity that when we get there, we can't even enjoy that time.
Mm-hmm.
Just to relax and relax. Give yourself the space to just relax and be there in the arms of the divinity that's within you. So it's spending time constantly. You can do it 100, you can be born again 1,000,000 times during the day. You can be baptized 6,000,000 times during the day. Just simply allowing the grace and goodness of God to overshadow you, take possession of everything that you are and you can express daily, repeatedly. Not beating up yourself when you fall short, but just daily repeating. So some conscious connection on a repeated basis. Consciously connected is what I'm saying. And then to see God within you rather than at force that's separated and way up in the sky, but it's within you. You don't have to go anywhere.
No,
Exactly.
it's
That you need is right here, right at your fingertips.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Answers, practices, everything right at your fingertips.
It's right here, right where we are, being each one of us. I love that. And on that note, we're going to take a short commercial break. You're watching Spirit Cafe with Cheryl and I and our lovely guest, Ian. And we're going to be back in just a few minutes. You're watching Spirit Cafe on the New Thought Media Network. We'll be right back.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience? Or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change.
That says a lot, doesn't it? Welcome back. Yeah. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at
change.
It's a
And what are we
recipe.
talking about? Spirituality and sexuality and changing the way we look at it and think
Yeah.
about it. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I love what you were saying before the break, Ian, about your spiritual practice. I remember when I had my spiritual epiphany, it was like this feeling of, somebody flipped a switch and all of a sudden I could see.
Yes.
Like, I went from darkness to light, right?
Yes.
That's the journey, is experiencing God here, not as some distant thing that's waiting for me to behave right, but rather the very essence of all that I am. And that as I honor myself, I honor the divine.
Mhm.
Divine. And guess what? Surprise. God isn't surprised about who you are and your thoughts and what's happening in your heart. It's surprise.
Yeah.
Surprise. We've been taught that, keep that away, don't speak that, don't say that.
Yeah.
Everything is good.
Yeah.
Everything is good. And so when you change that perspective about God, you realize that some of the things that God is supposed to be vexed about, losing sleep about, not talking to you about, avoiding your phone calls, really, that is not about God. It's not about your highest good.
Mhm.
It has no relevance at all in who you are and how you develop. Just not.
Mhm. Mhm.
Who you
Exactly.
sleep with,
Yeah.
all of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I think I can say for the three of us, at least here, that we believe in a God of love, not in a God of judgment and punishment, but a God of love that is inclusive of all, Ian, just like you say, right? There is no judgment. There is no punishment. There is choice, that we've been given free will so that we can create our own reality.
Yes.
And when I think about the saying in the Bible that we are created in the image and likeness of God, that means that we have the same ability to create. And how do we do that? By thinking, by what we do, what we say, the actions we take. And we can do that unconsciously, or we can do that consciously.
Mhm.
Awareness that we're doing it, because whether we're aware or not, that's what's happening.
It's exactly so. It's exactly so. And you know what? It's possible. The beauty about it is that any and everyone can achieve it. There's no select chosen nation, no royal, nobody set aside who is getting any privileges today, and some who might get it tomorrow, and some who might never get it in a lifetime. Does not exist.
That is all man-made, man-created.
Yes.
Right. And I think for me, recognizing and realizing that has really helped me shift the impact that the things people say and do in this world has on me, because I recognize that it's man-made. That is not who I am. That is not where I come from. We are one, and that means I am you. You are me. It doesn't matter what you do or say, and we all have the shadow side as well as the light.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so to embrace our wholeness and to love it into light. There's something I love about, and I don't know where it came from, but that analogy of a crack, let's say, wherever that crack is, letting the light in. If that crack wasn't there, you wouldn't be able to see the light. And so, just being able to accept and love it all without judgment, without that negative feeling of fear, hatred, condemnation. It is all good. That's why it's all good. Not because things are not good or bad, but because it includes all of it.
Yeah, I think acknowledging that every aspect of ourselves is what creates the whole of us, and we're all created unique and special. And so if we can learn to accept that I'm unique and special, and you are, and you are, and everybody is, in the moment that that gets accepted, we come to a place of honoring all the differences that are around us rather than judging it and criticizing it. We begin to go, wow, okay, you think that way. Cool.
Yes.
Even in our main relationships, I look at my relationship with my husband, who's very quiet and slow and methodical, and me, I'm quick and got to get things done, right? And so sometimes I get impatient. And what I'm learning after 21 years, I'm a slow learner, is that if I just take a breath, everything gets done. And the way Pierre does it is the way Pierre does it. And it is him. It's perfect.
Yes.
The way I do it is me. And that's perfect. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
except others.
Yeah. I think going back to what Ian said, recognizing that if I don't want to put myself in a place or with certain people is not because of any judgment against them. It's not because I don't see them as separate to myself, or because I do see them as separate to myself. I don't. But what it is about is, like you said, preserving my energy, my soul, working on who I am, who I want to be. And in order to do that, I have to remove myself from that space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think one of the other big things too, or another thing that we have to ensure that we factor into this different thinking, this radical thinking, this, however you want to classify it, this change is nurturing, giving some time, energy, and resources to nurturing it. In other words, if we're to continue using the seed planting analogy, we can't just leave it there for ourselves. What we have to do is to nurture it. Where do we go back to get the water, the nutrients, the things that are needed to make it grow, to preserve it? From what well fountain are we drawing? Where's our source? And so a lot of that has to do within. Go within.
And taking care of the soil, right?
Deeper.
The soil is what's inside.
Exactly. Deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have to anticipate some times that are going to be low. That's, whether we like it, a part of it, And in those times, what do we do? Because what works for me these days is, and I can't tell you how corny I found it when I heard it first. And now it's where I'm at. Knowing what you know in the very core of your being, so that at any time, any day, you can stand in knowing what you know. So this knowingness that it must get better, that there is no other way, there will be no other way. God is good every time, every place. And standing in that.
Yeah.
Now that's tricky, because sometimes we think, oh, hold on, God, you're fast asleep on this job, and I need to help you. Sometimes we feel this is what I know and what I've done over the past, and this is what blah blah blah, and we go yank it and then doing it ourselves. So it's not always easy. Don't get me wrong.
No.
But if we can train ourselves to, in those moments, in all moments really, but in those moments in particular, to just simply stand and say, the first thing I have to do is be still.
It's so important. And I think, not watching the news all the time, I think, is a really important thing as well. If you're going to watch it, maybe a half hour early in the day, so your mind isn't working it all night while you sleep. watch it, and not to watch it repetitively, because they keep repeating the same stories. And as we mentioned earlier, the mind does not differentiate amount or whether it's true or false. And the way news is presented these days, it's no longer factual. It is opinion, editorialized. It's like, well,
And it's dramatized.
and it's dramatized. And so we're not getting just facts. And then with the 24-hour news cycle, of course, it's continuous. There's constant repetition. And so we're taking in a lot of negativity, which increases the fear that we're living with, and starting to see everybody as dangerous and a problem, when really the things that are terrible in our world are actually minuscule compared to what is good. And when we focus on what's good, that's what expands in our personal experience. So when I'm out walking around my neighborhood, I'm saying hello to everybody I meet. They may or may not speak to me. That's okay. But I'm going to say hello to everybody. I'm going to look everyone in the eye. I'm going to greet everybody, because everybody is valuable.
Yes.
And we meet remarkable people when we get out of our fear. And that's easier to do when we care enough about ourselves
Yes.
to see the all of us. We're less likely to judge. It's like when we get into anti anything. I don't like anti things, because anti-bullying, well, somebody has to be bad and wrong, rather than let me educate everyone so we come to understand that all of us deserve respect and compassion and kindness, right? Because the bully probably has been harmed in some way and is therefore harming others. So if I can find a way to help that individual to heal, then we start to create belonging. And I think that's what's needed in our BIPOC as well, is to create belonging. And belonging gets created through healing. And it's about each one of us showing up in a way that's loving and compassionate and kind and respectful, and that we take time to recognize, I don't know it all. I don't know what I don't know, right? Right? So if I can be teachable, if I can be open, if I can listen to another person's perspective, even though I disagree with it, what happens is we can begin to create a common ground. We can start to build bridges. We can begin to heal.
Yeah. And as I listen to you, Barbara, I think about white privilege. I think about North America, and I think, that it's easier for some of us to say when we haven't been through the challenges and difficulties that others have experienced. And so, for me, I wonder, how do you speak to somebody who, like Ian has said, has never had anybody affirm their value, given them anything, had to work so hard for everything. They've gone through so many challenging, difficult times. I can only imagine somebody like that saying, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the hurt is deep. The hurt is deep. And I think it starts with, and Ian, you can correct me on this if I'm missing the point, but for me, it's about really being with people, looking them in the eye, listening with an open heart, not having all the answers, but willing to sit in our error thinking, willing to sit in our muck and go, okay, tell me something that I don't really know. Tell me your experience. So that, because what I find is, as I'm hearing the stories, my heart is breaking open. It's changing how I perceive the world, because I have girlfriends, women my age, beautiful, fabulous, professional women, who, when they go into a store, are followed because of the color of their skin. I've never had that experience. I never had to train my children. If you see a cop, make sure your hands are visible. Don't move. Don't move too fast. Don't, I never had to say that to my children. but I've heard that from the people that I love. And I think, oh my God, I'm so fortunate. I've had my own stuff, but I am so fortunate. And how can I assist in shifting consciousness? Because that's what I want to do. I want to see everybody treated with love and compassion and kindness, right?
And because we're having courageous conversations, and Ian, I'd love you to weigh in on this. One of the things that I've heard, I hear you, Barbara, and we come with the greatest of intentions. And I've heard people say, it's not my job to educate you.
Absolutely not.
Right. I've heard that myself. Right. It's like this, this is my experience. You have your experience. You have no idea. And it's not my job to educate you and to make you feel better as a white privileged woman.
No, I have to learn for myself, right?
Yeah. And so for me, it's also about hearing then, what is it that I can do that will make a difference? Not from what I think I can do or what I feel I want to do, because that's coming from my perspective. But what is it that I can do coming from the perspective of those that have suffered these injustices?
I agree with you. Privilege is a hell of a thing, and all of us have to simply keep reflecting on the privileges we have and how do we use that? How do you use that? So if you're a straight person, what privileges do you have and how do you use it? If you're white, what privileges does that accord? If you're educated, if you have access to social media, if you have access to resources, privilege goes right across the board. And what is simply fantastic is when we can use that privilege and topple it on its head. When we can use that privilege and say to the people in our sphere, this is wrong, it should not happen. This is wrong. And humankind has done that forever and ever, in so many powerful ways. Are we prepared to do it now? Are we prepared to use the privilege now to just say to people, hey, no, you would never know. In Canada, there are some things that are taken for granted quite readily. Reverend Barbara, you just said it, You don't know what it is to be followed in a shop. You don't know what it is to have to straighten up when you see a police. You don't know what it is to have to think, hold on, where am I going to get something to eat? Or am I going to sleep in the train station?
I actually do know that part, but
again, so using those things has the leverage to make it better for other people. It's the most fantastic thing, because the reason, or part of the reason we've had these experiences, is simply to turn it into atom breaking, changing of the entire, just so radicalizing how people think about it, and making life better for other people.
And some things that appear little, like what I love is through the reading and everything I've done, because I do a lot of reading. I want to understand different people's perspectives. And the only way I can do that, because I only know my own, is through reading and information, conversation, that sort of thing. But one of the things that I've come to acknowledge is that the things that appear really small that are actually really big and systemic. So I go into a hotel during COVID and they have 2 containers for pens, one for the clean ones and one for the dirty ones. One is white and one is black. And I guess you can guess which one is for the clean pens, right? And that to me is such a subtle smackdown. Now, I wouldn't have been aware of that years ago, but having worked with so many people and developed so many loving relationships with the BIPOC community, I have an understanding that that is really, it hurt me to see that. And that we just automatically accept, oh yeah, here's this. Or I remember once talking about little white lies, and a beautiful member of the community phoned me up and said, Rev, never occurred to me because coming from my white background, it was like, well, that means small lies. But her perspective was, well, does that mean big lies or big black lies? Like there was, it's these subtleties that we as white people do not know, do not understand, but we can educate ourselves. The internet, the books, there's so many great books written about privilege. And the most recent book that Michelle Obama wrote is so good because she talks about belonging and how we create belonging. And that to me is what I hope to be able to create in the
Yes.
world around me is that idea of belonging, to learn how to respect every culture, every person, whether I understand or don't understand. I want to strive to figure out, to learn to understand. That's, yeah.
And for me, a big part of it is having courageous conversations.
Yes, we have
Because
to.
we don't know what we don't know, right? And a lot, I find like I will make an assumption,
Mhm.
and that assumption can be totally off, off whatever I don't know what the word is, off.
Base.
Thank
Of
you. Off
center.
base, off center. Exactly. So the things for me, like for example, and I'm just going to give you an example, and this is no judgment or disrespect, Barbara, but I want to ask Ian, like if you had to see the white container and the black container, would you think like that?
I would immediately say, why do you have these?
Okay.
Why do you
Yeah.
have these? In fact, I
Yeah.
would say, this is offensive to me, and I need you to be able to take this into
Good.
consideration.
Good.
Now, that's me.
Yes.
I'm mindful that the majority of Black people will
Not
not
do that.
even think of doing that. They're not going to upset the beautiful hotel that's probably being nice and courteous. It's not going to do that. And that's why I have to do it, because my
Right.
privilege allows me so to do.
Right.
I think that's what it means to be an ally as well.
Right.
Because I found too, like with some of Genevieve's friends, she's got friends who are Muslim from Somalia, and they've been treated very poorly all the time, not even occasionally. It's like a regular occurrence. And when there was an abuse that happened on transit, I contacted transit, I contacted the mayor's office, I contacted the police. Nobody would do anything unless the girl who was specifically targeted stood up and spoke for herself. And I'm talking to the police going, but wait a minute, she can't
Mm.
speak for herself. My daughter was part of the interaction. We should be able to report this. They refused to take our report. So there's work to be done as allies. We have to fight for those who can't or don't feel that they can. I mean, they can.
Mhm.
Obviously, Ian, you'll stand up for yourself, but there's many people who will not.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
So
on a
those
journey.
are yeah, and those are ways that we can create changes by having the courage to maybe say something, not with any animosity or anything, because the person that put those there probably never even thought of that. But
Probably not.
just bringing their attention and awareness to how that could be perceived, and asking them to change it to orange and pink or something, like.
But let
Two
me
colors
also
there,
use this opportunity to say, for me, many times part of the stereotype is that you're an angry Black man. And why are you so angry? And why do you, again, we've been assertiveness,
Yeah.
aggression have been conflated.
Yes.
And actually, where I am now is I don't care if you think I'm angry.
Mm.
I was in Union Station recently and I saw some young people, just young people having a good time, just hanging out with each other. I'm plugging my computer in because the battery is going. And so, just the way in which the officer spoke to them was offensive. And it's only because they were young people. And of course, they kind of quailed up because this is an officer speaking to them, and they kind of. And I said, "Excuse me, I'm here, and I'm going to stand here, and I'm going to watch. Oh, you
Yeah.
these young people. I'm going to
Mm.
watch because they must be respected. They must,
Absolutely.
and they mustn't be felt to be made to to be made to feel like because they're laughing and whatever your own views are, you know, you're going to come over here and no.
Mhm.
All I'm saying is I'm not trying to become a national hero. I'm just saying that in spaces, we're in spaces all the time. Where this is
Yeah.
all the time, where people who don't have homes, who are precariously housed, who are unhoused, underhoused, are treated like shit
Yeah.
Yeah,
by
they are.
security
They are.
guards. Where racialized people are given, the work to go tell those people to get out. Or tell, all of these are unfair. We go
Yeah.
to restaurants and who has to do the dirty work?
Mhm.
Who? Predominantly women,
Mhm.
predominantly racialized women. And what do we do? So there are always opportunities. And I
Mhm.
don't care if you consider me to be angry or to be aggressive or to be whatever. I don't care.
Mhm.
It's your choice. I'm
Mhm.
Yeah.
going to be saying to you, it must not happen.
Good
And
for you. Good
apologetic
for you.
about it.
Yeah.
That's what's important is for every one of us to stand up to the injustices when we see them. And if we're raised with a certain level of privilege where we don't understand, the impact that this racialization has had on different people, then we can read, we can go to the internet, we can watch specific movies or documentaries on what's going on. These things will inform us and help us to maybe shift our perspective or deepen our understanding so that we can show up compassionately.
Mhm.
Now we're down to our last 3 minutes. So, Ian, final thoughts. What do you want people to take away from our conversation? The most important little tidbit you could give us.
I think it's important to say life is beautiful.
Yeah.
Life is joyous. There are some things that block our vision
Yeah.
from appreciating and seeing the beauty that there is in life. And if what we can do is just slowly shift our vision,
Yeah.
that we can appreciate that. If what we can do is just slowly go in search of and invest in, plug into the things that allow us to see how beautiful we are, it
Mm,
will show up on our screen. If we can just continue to associate ourselves with the dynamic people and entities that are showing on a daily basis that life is great,
Mhm.
it's better for us.
Mhm.
It's an inside job.
it
It is an
is.
inside job, and we have to start there. But it's possible. It's
Yes, it is.
possible. So it no longer is it necessary for us to dwell on the outskirts of joy and to just kind of vicariously no, jump in.
Jump in.
Jump
I
in.
Love,
love
laugh,
that.
and play.
Yeah.
Jump in.
I love that.
Love that. Cheryl,
Yeah.
how about you?
I think I would like to invite people to continue these conversations so that, change can be achieved. So that I love that analogy, if we block our vision, so that we can start unblocking our vision consciously because we choose to do so by educating ourselves and, just by thinking about the things we say and do.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm
Mm.
so grateful to you, Ian. You are such a remarkable human being. I love you so much. And Cheryl, I love you as well. I'm so glad to do this work with you. And Ian, we're going to have you back because this conversation is far from done.
Happy to be back. Love you both. Thank you for the great, great opportunity.
Thank
So
you,
glad you
Ian.
And this
be
work
here.
is fabulous. Please keep doing it.
And
Oh,
you too. Keep
absolutely.
doing the wonderful work you do too. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Bless you.
And we'll be back again next week. And we have a remarkable social activist with us next week. Angela Stulls is with us, and it's going to be fantastic. So, Spirit Cafe, don't miss it.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
a sure thing. Change, change. Expect a miracle change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at